Welcome everyone to our webinar on our connected services. So at this point, I'll just give you a quick overview here from the PowerPoint. A little bit about us. I think most of you probably already know that we've been in the Sage 300 space for over 25 years, and we are focused on delivering Tier 1 enhanced functionality to over 3,000 Sage customers around the globe. We're focused on comprehensive workflow and P2P solutions, including AP automation, and in particular with this webinar. We're showing you how we're extending that outside of Sage 300 using connected services, but still bringing it all back into the original Sage 300 SQL database. We've received a number of awards over the years from Sage that we're quite proud of. They're listed on the slide here. Our data centers around the globe are Australia, Canada, South Africa, and New Zealand. The reason why we mention data centers is because you do communicate with one of our data centers when you're using our PW Web or our PT Go app and the DPS services. A really broad overview on our solutions. If you were to compartmentalize us and put us into 4 categories, we have AP automation. So the automation suite, which is the OCR extraction of vendor invoice data and some other automation of web procurement using Punchout and e-invoicing using Peppol. Mobility is a big piece of today's webinar, showing you how you can use a browser and a mobile phone app instead of having people working inside of Sage 300. Many benefits to that, including you can have up to 50 users on one Sage LAN pack if they're working in our PW Web and PT Go app, instead of tying up one-to-one when they're in Sage 300. Our control suite, which as many know, our audit logger, which will audit user activity throughout Sage 300, and a more proactive one, workflow and notifications, where you can actually put workflows and controls around various views and most views inside of Sage 300 to actually stop unwanted activity before you approve it, such as changing vendor bank accounts, customer credit limits, posting to the GL, and so on. From there, we've got the workflow suite, as most of you know, and you probably have and work with, but inside of Sage 300, where we've got procurement, the purchasing workflow, we've got the payables workflow, and we've got the workflow documents, which brings us into the paperless side of things. And then again, the workflow notifications that we use in control to approve vendor payments. So a quick overview right now, when we look at the PW Web and our connected services, and just at a high level here, the top blue bar really just shows you that you can communicate with all of our modules in the procurement side of things, from procure to pay, including approving changes in the ERP and payments. So we've got purchasing workflow and funds availability, which, as we know, purchasing workflow is web requisitions and the requesting to purchase. And then from there, funds availability, tying in GL budgets to a view in the request process that allow people to see where they're at for budget when they're requesting and when they're approving. The payables workflow side, fully functional inside of the PW Web, and you can see all of the approvals, you can see your history, and from there you can actually see all the documents, and that's where workflow documents comes in, and you can attach on the purchasing side relevant quotes from vendors to over here on the payables side, your vendor invoices. And then here again, we've got the workflow notifications where you can approve, you can see and approve various changes that people are trying to make inside of Sage 300 and approving the payments. So from there, we'll just have 2 more, or actually there's 3 more slides. I'll cover 2 and then it'll be over to Jamie. This info diagram is quite informative in that it gives you a very good high-level overview of what's happening behind the scenes. So if we were to take a look at the 2 green hexagons, this is your Sage environment, and more so on the right-hand side, your Sage server, your Sage 300, and your AP invoice, AP payment, the PO side, AP vendor, and all the things that you have going on inside of Sage 300. People would post an AP invoice with no historical data as to who authorized it, and really with our workflows, whether it's through purchase requisitions, vendor invoices, or payments, we just put workflows in the middle so that people can set steps. You can set steps for the approval process, and notifications go off to the managers, and then from there they can log in and review what's being requested, do their approval, it goes back to the workflow. So as you know, we really don't change the end result. When it's done, it creates the AP or PO invoice, and everything ends up the same place that it does today. So really our workflows just get in the middle. So today's webinar is more about how do we do all of this without being inside of Sage 300. So currently, if you're using our products, the provers and the requesters are inside Sage 300 tying up LAN packs. If you wanted them using PW Web, they could do the request from the browser. And it would basically reach in and it would actually go through the same process that it would do as if they were inside of Sage 300. The big difference is you're only tying up one Sage LAN pack for up to 50 of these users. And you don't want maybe some of these people inside of Sage 300. Also, you have the ability to do the approvals in here. You've got the ability to do approvals and review inside of the PT Go mobile app as well. So this is a very big change in the whole procure to pay environment when you're looking at using our products and giving people more flexible environment to do their work from. Also, when you look at the DPS, the OCR, this buzzword, everybody knows OCR. So our DPS, document processing service, uses 3rd generation OCR and machine learning and AI. And what we do is we provide email address to you that you would send your vendor invoices off to, and it would go through our scanning service and bring it inside of Sage 300, usually within about 5 minutes. It's real-time extraction. From there, your AP person, their job is no longer having to enter vendor invoice data, which is time consuming. They're really just quality control at that point, looking at the scan, making sure the data has been extracted, and if they're happy, creating an AP or PO invoice is as quick as the click of a button. And then they're off to the workflow like they normally would be. And then of course, we've got our approvers out here. Other than that, one of the other interesting features, and you may or may not know, being a user of our payables workflow, is you can actually bring down your credit card data from the credit card company and send it out to your users via invoice, where you would assign a vendor to each of your card holders, and they get their transaction data on their mobile phone or in their browser, where if they're on their mobile phone, they can take a picture of their receipts and attach it and submit it back to you. So this is a great way of utilizing this feature with our connected services to get receipts, expense receipts back. In some areas of the world, we have e-invoice and people, and it's a electronic invoicing technology that's being used, and we're all set up with that as well, where you simply send that through our DPS service and it brings the data, the invoice data already into Sage 300 ready to roll. From there, if you were to say, okay, how does this all work and how does it relate to our server versus your server? So on the right-hand side, Sage 300, this is your server. And in the center here, this would be our server. So the only communication you have with your server is using an IIS web service that comes by default with Windows, and you probably already have it set up anyways for remote desktop and other services that you're using. So you would install another web service. We would do the same on our server, and we would provide 3 dedicated IP addresses that you would allow through your firewall and probably through port 443. From there, it's very secure connection, and you're just dealing with us on a one-to-one basis. We handle the public-facing traffic, so if somebody's on a browser or a mobile phone app, when they go to log in, it reaches through our server and through our dedicated IP addresses into Sage 300, and it says, who is this person and what are they allowed to see and do? So one misconception is, well, where do we create the users? Well, you can create as many users as you like inside of Sage 300 without extra cost. The only time that ever costs you any extra money is if you actually need LAN packs for them to physically log in here. So we assign all their user rights and privileges. They can see it from their browser and mobile phone, and everything's happening inside your Sage 300 in real time. We're not caching any data here in our server. We're just getting enough information here to allow the transfer, and this is flushed pretty much daily. From there, I'm going to hand this back over to Jamie so that he can give you an overview of this diagram. And there you go, Jamie. You've got the mouse.
All right, cool. Thanks, Bill. Yeah, so hi, everyone. It's Jamie Steele here. Thanks for your time attending the session today. So what I was just wanting to cover here is this area of automation that we've done a lot of work on last year, and we're using the name touchless processing, and we're quite excited about this because it really gives customers some really great efficiency gains. And so what we've done, we've got this infographic that just sort of illustrates the different steps of the DPS system that Bill's been talking about. So here's the PDF gets emailed in to the customer's mailbox. They then forward that onto our mailbox, goes through a spam filter. Then we've got a process that then works on those emails, takes off the attachments. Then we submit the attachments to a data extraction service. Then we receive that data back. And then the question is whether the vendor is trained or not trained. So you just need to do a bit of a training process for each vendor. But for a certain number of invoices, so the system knows where to read the data from. The system will actually work out a lot of it, normally about 90 or 95% of it, it'll work it out anyway, using its machine learning. But we just need the users to just check that and just make any tweaks. So if the vendor's trained, then the invoice will come into our DPS console here, and this is where the users pick it up. So you can see here we've got the user illustration. And so then it will then travel through the process. If it's an AP invoice, it goes through here, goes through this process, needs to be approved, and then ends up within Sage AP. If it's a PO invoice, it comes down this path because now it needs to match to a PO receipt. And then we've got within our system the tolerance levels. So if it's within tolerance, it goes through, but if it's out of tolerance, then it needs to be approved by a certain user. So with this touchless processing, what we've done here is develop these programs. It's a bit of a long acronym, well, DCQP. So what it stands for is DPS Console Queue Processor. So we've been putting a lot of work into this over a 12-month period, and we finished that about 12 months ago. And so what this really means is now when an invoice arrives in here, if it's a PO invoice and you've nominated it for certain vendors, so you just say which vendors you want touchless to work for, then instead of the user picking it up, this program will check certain elements. There's 4 checks that it carries out, and if the invoice passes those, like for instance it has found a PO number and a receipt number, and the number of lines match, those are just some of the examples. So if it meets those criteria, then this program will push that invoice through into the payables workflow, and which is then where the matching is done. And so if it's within tolerance, it flows right through. And so you've got a number of customers now where they're getting up, some of them 150 or 200 invoices per day, and those invoices are traveling through this entire process without any users needing to touch them, but they're still going through all the checks and balances, so we're always very conservative. We're worried about scammers and fake invoices. So, but with all these checks and balances, clients can be comfortable. And so just to reiterate, so the invoice gets emailed in, comes through the process here, the data gets extracted. These are for vendors that have been trained, so the high volume vendors like sort of fuel invoices or something like that, they come into the DPS console. The DCQP then checks if they meet the criteria, and that only works for PO invoices because it doesn't make sense for AP invoices. If it's got a PO and a receipt, then it pushes it through here, and normally they're within tolerance, but if they flow right through. So so we've got some companies getting up to 200 invoices a day, going through that whole process without any users having to touch them. But if there's a variance, if the supplier's overcharged, then that'll get picked up here, and so that's where the person can review that. So that's something we've really excited in terms of just the savings and efficiency gains that we're delivering to some some of our customers using this touchless automation. Right, so that's really just covering that part of it, Bill. So back over to you.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Jamie. Let me just get set up here for a second. And there we go. Just pulled off the keyboard. So your mouse is good. And we will go directly to PWWeb. So here we go. So this is what our PWWeb looks like, except we would brand it with your color, your logo, your look and feel. But this is the concept, and we would give you a URL that your employees would log in through, and you would put in your username, your password, select the entity that you would be logging into. So what I'm going to walk through right now is I'm going to be a purchase requisitioner, and I'm going to do a simple requisition, create a PO after it's been approved. So we'll go through the approval process, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to log in as this requisitioner. It's reaching back to the server now, and it's saying, who is this person? And what are they allowed to see and do? And it brings the view back to the screen so that this person's able to do their work. So here we are. In this particular case, I'm into a screen where a person doesn't have any approvals. Now we could get into other screens, but I'm going to keep focused on just being a requisitioner. So I'm going to do a new requisition. And so we just select that button right there. And from there, as we know, in our modules, you can assign the workflows and the cost centers that each user can work with. And that's all they see here in PWWeb, only what they're allowed to. So in this case, I'll select this workflow, select the marketing department. If you want, and this works with your templates too, if we wanted to, we could populate a template. And this is a standard feature that we have. And you could populate up a whole list of things that you normally would use to purchase. You can remove them if you don't want to use them, and simply add items if you don't want to be using a template. So in this case, give you an example. This thing has find as you type, same as you do in Sage 300. So I'm looking for USB pins. And so these pins populate immediately from our items feature inside of purchasing workflow. And we've actually got a default vendor there, which is another feature we have inside of our purchasing workflow with items. And I'm going to set up 1,000 pens, and I'm going to set the price of $5. So I'm going to insert that. So we now have that. I'm going to attach a quote. And so we'll attach the quote that I have from the supplier. And we could, and as you know, in your templates, I had a default ship to. So we can change this same exact situation as you have in Sage 300. You can have your date required, all the rest. It's very much the same thing as working in Sage 300. Just they don't have to be there, and you're not tying up one-to-one land packs. So if I submit this, it's going to reach into Sage 300. So this is reaching into Sage 300, and it is actually working as if they were sitting in Sage 300. And it's going to come back with a requisition number, and it's going to send an email off to the next actioner. So it created REQ 56, and so I would know if I was the next actioner in line here. Oops, sorry, I have a sample that I can show you of an approval. So here's an email example, and you're used to these, but if I want to just point out, you can have a shortcut on there that brings people directly to their login. We'll jump in as the division manager. So now we have a default login screen. So this user's default login is actually on the payable side. We can change that in admin settings as to what our preference is. So I'm going to go to the purchasing workflow side, and we can see requisitions that are outstanding. This is the requisition 56 that I just created. Now, if I wanted to have a quick overview of that, there's a few ways we can do this. You can click the button that I just did, and you can see the detail here. You can broaden the screen out, get more view on that. From there, if there's any optional fields, events, I can see who sent this to me. I can see the attached document that if I want to have a look at it. I can look at my funds availability budget if I'm using funds availability, and it's basically the exact same as being in Sage 300. If I wanted to click this $sign, that's a fast view of the budget, which is really handy if I just want to get a really quick overview. And in this case, you know, we've blown the marketing budget here and I can see that. Another way is to do a quick view right here, which will actually bring up the quote, a view of the quote, and sample and the data. So actually, let's just bring that across. That's just a view setting on my browser there. Bear with me. I've got a whole thing in my way here. Okay, I'll just bring that down. There we go. So you get the idea of it. You just adjust your browser setting on this so you can see what's going on here. I just happen to have, there we go. Well, that was better. Okay, this is what we want. So there's your quote. There's the detail. This is everything the person needs to know. And if they're happy with this, then it's as simple as saying, okay, I'm going to approve this. I'm okay with this. And whatever items are changed, you can have many in one view. So we could approve 5 things. You know, I could approve all 3 of these if I want, and select postmark documents. It's reaching back to the server now, affecting change. And it's saying, okay, this was approved as if this person was sitting in Sage 300. And the next actioner just got an email and they get notified that they have something they need to do. So if I wanted to, and I were interested in using the mobile phone app, I could log in, and this is what our mobile phone app looks like, except in a browser view. I could log in from the mobile phone app, and now it's gone to the controller because of a dollar value spent. And the controller can see things in a more efficient mobile view. So we can see this person has 3 requisitions to approve, 3 AP invoices and 1 PO invoice. So in this case, I'm going to take a look at my requisition. There's requisition 56 and populates all the data. There's the transaction detail. There's the workflow events. There's the document. And if I wanted to say this was okay, I would just select the check mark. I'm fine with this. And hit submit. And you'll see it turns green and it's reaching back to Sage 300, affecting change. So now what that's done is it's created a PO. And when we get into 300, maybe what we'll do is we'll pop into 300 here. And I'll go in as the controller. So I just want to have a look to make sure that that created its PO. It would have sent the PO off to the actioner. All these functions are all standard for our purchasing workflow, just all happening remotely. And so if we were to take a look here and just, I'll find that the most recent PO will be sitting in there at the bottom. Down here we are. There's PO 89 is what it created. And when we look at PO 89, we look at the events tab, we can see that it was requisition 56. So everything happened the way you would expect it to in Sage 300. That's why I'm showing from here. You can query all of this from PW Web as well, and we'll show you that later. But really important for you to know that everything actually is happening right from here. So PO 89 for that particular purchase, if we turn around now and let's go to our DPS, and I have an invoice ready to go. So this invoice right here, we'll open it up, is for the 1,000 units, $5 plus tax. And what I'm doing is I'm going to send this off to the email address that's been designated for this company. So we give you a specific email address for your company. If you have multiple entities, we give you multiple email addresses so that the invoices arrive in the correct entity. And it's just, and to give you an example, your vendors may send these to you by email. You can just forward them. Some people will say, okay, I want my AP email address to forward to this, but I also get a copy so we know. I mean, ultimately, you want to know about these one way or another. So there's a number of ways that you can set up how this goes. So I'm sending that off and away it goes. So if I'm an AP person now and I am working inside of Sage 300, I would go to Payables Workflow and I would be looking, and we'll just log in here. I would be looking inside our Payables Workflow module in what we call the DPS console. And so while we wait for that invoice to come through, and usually it takes about 5 minutes for the scanning to happen. I sent one through earlier today, and the difference is the last 3 digits of this one are, this is today's date, and then the last digits were 001. But you can see it's extracted. There's a copy of the invoice. It's extracted the data. The way it knows who the vendor is because you assign a unique variable on the invoice to an area in the vendor master file. So in this case, we've assigned the tax number to the vendor master file. And if I were to just quickly show you this, we can go into the vendors and I'll just show you how we did that. Open this up. We'll go into this vendor. And in this area here, and there's a few different options. We take advantage of the tax class. You could use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 if this is already being used, but most people don't have anything in here. So we just pop that number in there, and that's how it knows. There's a few other things in Payables Workflow vendor setup that you can control as well. So if I want to specifically say some things, for example, where am I identifying who this vendor is? So the default is tax registration number 1. You can have other numbers. You can also use name, business registration number, phone number. So we typically never have to get to that. I've always ever just used this first line right here. You can have the ability to consolidate or not consolidate. So not everybody wants all the line items. So that's a choice. In the setup, there is training. So each vendor invoice, so each vendor, what you would want to do is just take 5 copies of one of their invoices and send them off together to our scanning service. And then you would log in and just make sure and see how it made out in the training process and push it through. So we call indexing training. So if it's on indexing, it will not come through to Sage 300. It'll sit in the DPS or in our extraction console, and that's where we do training. Usually within 5 hours. So if you push 5 invoices through, you've told it exactly where things belong, and you output it, about 5 hours later, you're going to find if you send another one, it's going to get it all right. And at that point, you would change it to output. Now, if I was to show you really quick how that looks, this is our console right here. And I have one sitting in there that you could quickly see how this training process works. It's quite simple. So technically, we don't even really need to put the vendor name here because the most important thing is the tax number on that level. Once we get this tax identifier line figured out, it'll populate the name as per the vendor master file. So, you know, if I would expect the first one to come through with the invoice number, the date, a little bit of this line data. It may actually get the total already. I mean, this is the artificial intelligence is quite incredible. So here I would say, put my mouse in the tax number field, and I would literally just highlight it, and it populates it right back to the tax number field, and that's it. And for the rest of the training, all you're doing is putting your mouse in any field that it did not get right, and go ahead and tell it that's where all these items belong. quite simple. And in the end, you just hit output and off it goes, and it'll end up in Sage 300 in that DPS console within a couple minutes. So I can hit that and off it'll go. So we'll go back to Sage 300. We'll pop back in and we'll get back where we were a minute ago. So here's that invoice again. So recap, we did a requisition. We did the requisition. Actually, what I do want to do is go back and do the receipt. So maybe before I go too much further with this, we'll jump into as a requisitioner, and I'll receive the goods on that one. I have a whole setup there that I did earlier. I did send the invoice through the scanning service. So realistically, if our requester, whoever's in the field, has done their receipt, then it'll align everything automatically. Otherwise, you just go find it, which is no problem either. So we've got, here we are. So we click on the PO number. And so you've got some options here. If you only received part of it, you could say what you received. Otherwise, cancel that out. And the quick way is if you got everything that you received or that you PO'd, then you would just say receive all. It'll populate the PO quantity and hit post. And so what that's going to do now is give us a receipt number. And it's exactly the same as if it were in Sage 300. So your people are out in the field, they're making purchase requisitions, they're proving things, they're getting receipts. So, and this was an issue for a company we were just working with. They couldn't get people to do receipts. And this is super easy. They just give them the browser, tell them to log in, do their receipts. They have no excuse not to. So we created receipt 133. So now that that's been received, I'm going to go back in here again. And I'm actually in here as the AP person, and we'll go back into the console. Let's just do a refresh, see if that other one's popped in yet. Or it's still, actually, yeah, it did. There it is right there. So Sentry invoicing or Sentry marketing, and it actually picked up a point out too. That's how fast that happened. See that modern supply one? That was the one that I just pushed through a minute ago from training. And this is the one that I emailed as well. So it didn't, so this is good to explain. I did the receipt after this came through. And if I tried to process this, it would complain that there was no receipt. So this is a great way to ensure that people are receiving. We can set up a reminder tool to send off if they get to this stage and there's no receipt. In this case, we know that the receipt was done, and this was the receipt right here. So if I could just save that. Otherwise, what you'll see happening is it actually picks up the receipts automatically if they're already done. And I can't get that view back up, but that's okay. You'll find when you're looking at this, and I can give you a demo at any time, or one of us can, to give you a better view. So it's caught the PO, it's got the receipt, it understands that it's a PO invoice, it has everything we need. So all you need to do now is click process, and all that work related to creating a PO invoice is gone. This is now creating it for you, and it will actually at this point look at the variances that Jamie talked about. And so back to, the touchless side of things, this one is a perfect one. There is no variance. And if you were to want it to go all the way through, it could. And here we are, there's an example of no variance. And as you know, in our purchasing or in our payables workflow, we do have the ability to set up PO variances, and that's how it relates to that touchless PO invoice side. So if you wanted nobody to be looking at this, this could actually just go straight through. Otherwise, if I wanted to submit this to the workflow, as per usual, you would just hit the submit button and off it would go. So we're going to push this through, and I'll see that one sitting there. It'll send as it always does, the invoice off to the manager. That's the next actioner, and that person can turn around now. It says it's been submitted, so let's get out of there, close this off, and refresh that. Says it's completed, so you just refresh it. And if I go back out of here, I just want to log in as the division manager. And so we're working from the browser again. I've received an email saying I have, as you would if you were in 300, I have an invoice waiting to be approved. And there it is right there. If I wanted to do a quick view of it, I could click the magnifier, and this is a great browser perspective. So you get a quick view. You can see an invoice on the right side. If you want to edit line items on the left side, you can edit if you have edit permission. I mean, this is really relative to people that have those permissions, but I had somebody with a utility bill where they said the IT person was the only one that knew which locations and GL codes all of the items belonged, and they had pages and pages, and they could just scroll through them all. In this case, this is a simple AP invoice. This other perspective, by hitting the pencil, you get a full view of the working area, but you don't have the quick view of the document. However, from here, if you want, you can see the taxes, you can see events, you can see your document. So there's quite a few different ways that you can go at these views. And if we click open here and we take a look, we can see it this way as well. So there's quite a few options: your taxes, optional fields, events, how it got to me, and documents. So at this point, if I wanted to approve this, I would just say it's approved, okay with me, or okay to pay, and post mark document. So off it goes. And really, everybody's got different approval processes, different scenarios, PO invoices, AP invoices. I think the whole gist of this really is around the idea that you can see everything that you need to. And this is the mobile phone app. Okay, I'm gonna go in here as the controller and jump into that company. Just want to pop this up a bit. And again, we already did this with the requisitions. And now on the payable side, you've got AP and PO invoices. In that case, I pushed through an AP invoice. You can click through these. You can see all the same information. You can see the transactional data. You can see the event tab, who started this, like the AP person. It went to the division manager. It failed a dollar value check of $500, and that's how it got to the controller. There's the document. And again, if I was happy with this, I'd say okay to pay and submit, and off it goes. So that's the procure to pay side of things using the browser and the mobile phone app, as well as the AP automation inside of Sage 300. If we were to take a look now, I think what we'll do is we'll go back and we'll just look at some of the settings and overview of what you can look up while you're here. So and actually, I will go in as the controller, because there's one last thing just so you can see that our workflow notifications, if I was to log in as the controller here, and if I had a payment to approve or anything else for that matter, you would normally, be in Sage 300 here. You would go down once it logs in. You would jump down to our workflow notifications, and you would be in your approval console, and you would be looking here in Sage 300. And there's, your payments, and you've got these payments to make. And these people are asking, they've tried to post a payment batch. There's a threshold on there that caused a trigger that blocked them from going any further. You received a notice. You're able to see all the detail, and you can do it from the browser as well. So from here, we can go to workflow notification, and we can see the things that are hanging out there that need our attention. And same idea, there's 5 payments sitting out here that you can review. There was a journal entry that needed review, a GL entry. You can look up the detail here. And it helps give more visibility on the fly for people. So in other words, you could have a CEO that isn't familiar, doesn't work inside of Sage 300, and this is not uncommon, but they absolutely want to be able to approve certain payments. And so you just give them the browser and they do it from here. And they can see who, how did this get to me? This person to this person to this person. Probably the best example is this one here. I do a lot of demo invoices, so I don't always have the people set up, chronologically, but they've got everything. Oh, and the other thing to point out, they can see the original document too. And hang tight, there it is right there. So there's the invoice that was approved. There's all the approvers and the history. And if they're happy with this, they could literally just, approve, set that to approve, okay to pay, and post that. And that'll go off. It'll unlock the payment batch, send a notification to the AP person that they can proceed. So that's the overview of the workflow notifications features from PW Web. Now we can just take a look. Let's take an orientation of our PW Web. So you can see over in the approval console, you have the purchasing workflow approvals. So if people in your organization are set up for purchasing workflow, they can see anything they need to pay attention to. They can have payables approvals here, payable workflow approval here, and workflow notification approvals here. Transactions, if they want to look up, or they can create a new transaction, so you can do a new requisition, you can do a PO receipt, PO change order. So there's quite a bit of activity and information there. Inquiries, so I can look up a PO inquiry. For example, I'm interested to know what's hanging out there, and I want to see what the detail is on this particular PO, and I can see exactly what's gone on with this. Any items that are of interest. If I am logged in, actually, and your requisitioners, they're going to want to know some visibility where their requisitions are sitting at. And so when they're in here, that's a pretty important one, that they can take a look at my requisitions and see what's going on with their recs. Now, if I don't have anything hanging out there, so these ones are all completed and you can see the details. If one wasn't completed, they would see who is the next actioner and so on. So that's, you can look up your invoices, you can look up funds availability, you can look up, and related to project and job costing, and that's another good one to point out. If you're in requisitions, and this is related to PJC, you would simply click that box and it populates the extra fields that you need for your project. Stock worksheets for doing your stock taking, reallocation, so substitution. So if you have permissions to use this, it's the same as in Sage 300. You can reallocate outstanding items. Somebody was sick, now we need to reallocate, or you are going on leave, vacation, so you can set up your timelines there. Your profile, really basic setup, and you can say what your landing page is, which one of those views you want to be your landing page. Probably in admin here, one of the most important ones to know about is cash utilities. So if you've changed something in Sage 300 and you want it to be out there live today, right now, you would want to go here and update the module or just refresh all, and it will push it out to the web service so that it's there. Otherwise, your web service is going to be set to do it probably at 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning, however you do that when you install it. But this is how you would push stuff out there. You can see what is hanging out there if you want, like your vendors through this view. So there's quite a bit of visibility. This PW Web has a lot of functionality. You can change captions, maintain menus, so you can rework some of the wording, captions that might be more familiar, user actions, you can look up. So that's PW Web. Over here on the PTGo app side, you can have default company. Oh, and that's another one here. You can have multiple company views. So you can set it up so that you can see all your companies. There's this manage PW Web companies, and you can set this up so you have a multi-company view, and you can also do it here, multi-company view. So if I log in now, I can see all the companies. So some people like to have visibility of all their companies instead of jumping around from one to the other, and other people like to keep it very clean so that they only see the one. So other than that, if we take a look, so that's the overview. I think we'll jump back to the PowerPoint. Jamie, did I miss anything there?
No, no, I think that you've covered everything there, Bill, pretty well. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So if you took a look at some success stories, I mean, the tradies, they said it's easy, intuitive. The mobile app is really helpful, quick for approval process. They can view attachments, ability to add notes. This app has been positively received by everyone that uses it. I've never seen invoices get approved so fast since the app was put in. That means our suppliers are paid more quickly, which is great for them also. So these people quite happy. I mean, we have all kinds of these. You know, COVID-19 was a real facilitator for remote working and having other tools. So PW Web made a huge difference, and so did the app, giving people functionality outside of Sage 300 and remote on the fly. This is one of our more recent ones. We used to deal with things manually. It was paper heavy. Employees were frustrated. Real-time access to data, and you know, when they meant real-time access, not everybody had access to Sage 300. Now they all have access to it through PW Web and the PT Go app. So a brief overview of all our modules. Most of you probably know payables workflow, purchasing workflow we talked about today, PW Web, vendor catalogs. In your purchasing workflow, control your vendors and your vendor agreements. Workflow documents, as you know, is our paperless document module for purchasing and payables workflow, and now actually working with workflow notifications. Commitment accounting, where you can track your sort of commitments that are hanging out there. Funds availability, really great for tying into GL budgets. GL budgets exist, but nobody can see them when they need to, and that's when you're spending money. Workflow notifications, we talked about controlling changes in the ERP and approvals and payments. Advanced stock take, this is one that you could really pay attention to if you have someone with IC. Month end, year end, pain in the neck. Most people don't want to work retroactively. With a click of a button with our advanced stock take, it'll tell you what your position was on any day retroactively and give you unlimited worksheets. So that's a huge one. Audit logger, we talked briefly about, gives you control. Well, it gives you audit, so it gives you history, audit history on user activity. Internal issues is about controlling and moving visibility of inventory from location to location internally, and consumption of it internally. And key communications, extending communication with documents, and actually our e-invoicing. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, for coming today, and for anybody, for our folks in North America, reach out to me, please. We really appreciate your time today, and really excited to show you more.